Barbados Labour Party family. Good night to the residents of Prior Park, Redmonds Village, Bagatelle. Good night to everybody who is within the sound of our voice. I thank you for coming out tonight, and I thank you for staying with us through these intermittent showers. There's something about rain that speaks to refreshing. There's something about rain that speaks to renewal, rebirth, growth, and prosperity. So I hope that you, like me, happens not to be too bothered about the fact that the rain is falling, because for me it is a symbol of what will happen to this country when once again the Barbados Labour Party takes government. Because just as the rain will bring growth tomorrow, when the Barbados Labour Party comes back to the reins of power, we will once again see a prosperous and beautiful Barbados, a place that we remember what it used to be like and hate what it is now. Tonight is a special occasion, not just because it gives us a chance to speak to the people of Barbados, but because my comrade, my friend Kerry Simmons, has asked the party to come to this district so that we could focus on a particular issue of relevance to this community. And I speak about the metal recycling facility that is being established nearby. Thank you, Peter. But while Kerry is going to speak specifically about that facility and the difficulties that we have with that facility, it is part and parcel of what is now becoming the legacy of the Democratic Labour Party. It is not a legacy that is filled with noble ideals. It is a legacy now that besmirches the good name of the country we love and hold so dear. And my theme for tonight is the bad governance that the people of Barbados are having to live through. I'm not talking about bad government, because we all know that that is what we have. I am talking about bad governance. And that is going to be the theme that I wish to share with you this evening. One of the things that history tells us is that as a person comes close to defeat, as a person comes close to the end of anything, they reach a point where they're uncertain of what to do. And very often, they become desperate. They become careless. They become sometimes don't care-ish. And I challenge you to ask yourselves whether that is not exactly what you are seeing as you watch the Democratic Labour Party government in its closing days. It is their closing days, and I believe that they recognize it. And now we are seeing a desperation setting in, a desperation that springs from one thing alone, a desire to win the government once more. 2008 is not so long ago that our memories have dimmed any. We know that in 2008, a desperate opposition came to the people of Barbados and offered them what my parents would call the end of the yard and the 7 stars. They were desperate to get out of opposition. And having come into government, they have behaved in a don't care-ish way. And now desperation has once again set in. And that desperation is what has brought us here tonight on the fringes of Prior Park, Redmonds Village and Bagatelle, because we want to share with you the fruits of the desperation of the Democratic Labour Party. It is important that we remember that the Democratic Labour Party devoted numerous pages of its manifesto to talking about governance. They tried to convince the people of this fair land that the Barbados Labour Party was filled with evil human beings whose only interest was in filling their pockets with loot, and that they were going to bring something to Barbados that we had never seen before, they said, something called good governance. We know different. I was a member of Owen Arthur's cabinet, and I know what it is like to be held to the highest possible ethical standards as we conducted our day-to-day business as government ministers. But they besmirched our names, tarnished our reputations, and said to you that they were bringing good governance. Shakespeare, in one of his plays, used the term past is prologue. Past is prologue. And what Shakespeare meant by that was that the things in the past are a window to what you will do in the future. They portend what you are going to do in the future. So at an early point in my presentation tonight, I want to remind each and every one of you that upon the call of the election in 2007, the Democratic Labour Party immediately began to break the laws of this country by setting up illegal billboards. Now, I know that some people may say, man, that is a small thing, man. What are you going back there for? The problem, my friends, is that when you wink and nod at the small things, if you don't rein in these things when there are small things, then when calamity strikes, you have no room to act. And I want to say to you that for the Barbados Labour Party, we understood that if you could start a campaign to take the reins of government by committing illegal acts, then those illegal acts were of ill omen. They were an ill omen and pointed us to the kinds of things that we could expect from the Democratic Labour Party. And you know what? It is exactly what has happened. I remember well, the chief town planner did a press conference and said that the billboards were illegal and that he would issue notices. And the response of the person who was leading the opposition at that time, a man named David Thompson, his response was, by the time they could lick down the billboards, we would be in government. A small thing? In that statement alone, my friends, lies a contempt for the laws of our country. And if you hold our laws in contempt when it comes to small things, why would we not expect you to hold them in contempt with big things? If you hold our rules and regulations in contempt before you come into government, why on earth would we expect you to respect them when once you come into government? So it should be no surprise, my friends, that we have to stand here tonight and speak about poor governance. Is it that the DLP did not know, or is it that they did not care? Is it that the Democratic Labour Party, as it sought to wreck the good name of this country, is it that they did not know, or that they did not care? We in the Barbados Labour Party are here tonight to charge the Democratic Labour Party with the betrayal of our nation and its people. And that betrayal is in the fact that they have so run our country that we are now disregarded in the international arena. It is important to remember that the tone that a government sets is the tone that a nation lives by. If a government behaves like cowboys, then we will be regarded as being a nation of cowboys. If a government behaves like wild boys or gunslingers, then we will be regarded as a nation of wild boys and gunslingers. And if they behave in a lawless fashion, Barbados will be regarded as a place in which lawlessness thrives. the danger is, my friends, that when we give the Democratic Labour Party a pass on the small things, we are on a slippery slope leading us to anarchy. It is not a small matter, and there are no small things when it comes to how you run a country. A country relies on a few pillars for its stability. One of them is the economy. And you've heard on all of our platforms and all of our meetings us speak about how the government has wrecked the economy. But good governance is that other pillar. And when you have a thriving economy and you have good governance, those are the things that make for stability in a nation. Our duty as an opposition is to draw these things to your attention. Some people believe that oppositions oppose only for the sake of opposing. That is not the case with us. Now let me tell you about good governance. There are a few things that go to make up good governance. One of them is something called the rule of law. And this is not important just because I happen to be a lawyer. The rule of law means that no one is above the law. It is a rule that is the hallmark of all civilized societies, and it means that every single person, every entity, government or citizen has to follow the rules. If we do not follow the rules, then anarchy prevails. Now, we have to go back to that infamous billboard. When you begin by not following the rules, then you're on a slippery slope. But what do we have today? We have a government that proposes to use NIS funds illegally. You heard the Minister of Finance say that he was going to impose on the NIS out of their funds, anytime they make over $10 million or something like that in a month in surplus, they were going to take some of it and put it in the consolidated fund. My friends, as nice as that sounds, it is against the law. How dare Chris Sinclair, as a principal minister in this administration, announce to the country a policy that has at its heart an illegal act, and we're expected to wink at that. I would remind you, my friends, that this is the administration that put an executive director in charge of the Barbados Water Authority, a post that is unknown to the law, and required the general manager to report to him. Now, under the Water Authority Act, the general manager has sole responsibility for the management and government of the BWA. But this administration, despite the protests of the Barbados Labour Party, despite the protests of sensible, good-thinking people in our nation, they went ahead and did it anyway. And I remember well David Thompson saying, "Don't mind them, we are the government." Again, a callous disregard for the law. And you know what our stance was on the appointment of a Chief Justice. Because they determined that they were going to appoint as Chief Justice an individual who did not fit the bill as far as the statute was concerned. And in the dead of night, after midnight, they caused a parliament of a civilized society to change the law to accommodate what base desire they had in their heart. You remember that they terminated the contract for the highway in Parliament. You remember that they fired George Edgell after Cabinet at a press conference. Those things, my friends, are examples of how this administration has ignored the rule of law to the peril of an entire nation. Another hallmark of good governance is effectiveness and efficiency. And what that means is that a government must meet the needs of the people, utilizing the best of the resources in the best way possible. effective and efficient. This is the administration, my friends, that has borrowed more money in the last 4 years than an entire Barbados Labour Party administration borrowed in 14 years. This is administration that is pumping millions of dollars into constituency councils. And the only thing that we can show for them is a football tournament. Effective and efficient. They fail on that score as well. Another hallmark of good governance, my friends, is responsiveness. And this one means a lot to me because a responsive government caters to the needs of its people in a timely fashion. And as Member of Parliament for St. Joseph, I have to point my fingers at a man named Adriel Brafitt, Minister of Home Affairs, and show him near a dozen houses that were destroyed by Hurricane Thomas more than 2 years ago, but which today are still lying derelict. Is that a responsive administration? And I'm sure that's the picture all across this country. Transparency. Transparency has to do with following the rules in a predictable way. But yet still, a company can be given a lollipop deal. That is what it is, a lollipop sweetheart deal to operate a metal recycling facility without the permission of the chief town planner, in circumstances where the sanitation authority has not been able to say a word about it, and only satisfying the interests and the will of a minister of government. When we talk about poor governance, we're really saying that governance in Barbados has been brought low. And by law, I think you will understand that we mean a man named Dennis Law. But those are just many sides, many facets of the problem. And if I concentrate tonight on the police force, I think you will understand why. Because the golden thread that runs through this entire situation, my friends, is that the government of this country is subjecting the country to poor governance. It is subjecting every single one of its departments to poor governance. And at the end of it all, my friends, what will we have left? Our country, if we do not put a halt to it, will be in shambles. The Royal Barbados Police Force has served this country admirably for many, many decades. As you look across the Caribbean, you will see police forces having to bring in commissioners of police. In Trinidad, they brought in a commissioner from Alberta and a deputy commissioner, I think, from a different part of Canada. I believe in Jamaica they've had to bring as commissioners of police members of the Jamaica Defense Force. In other parts of the region, you can see how the police forces have suffered because of nasty political interference. Nasty political interference. And we would have thought, my friends, that such a dark day would never befall our country.
I'll call you back in 2 minutes.
We understand that a stable police force makes for stable communities. A stable police force makes for a stable nation. And so immediately in the aftermath of the 2008 election, when we realized what was happening in the police force, we stood up and we said, no, this is not good enough for Barbados. We went so far as to say, look, pick another government department to interfere with, but leave the police force alone. If you interfere with the police force in a political fashion, it will only destabilize the force. And when you destabilize the force, Barbadians are unsafe in their beds at night and as they go about their business during the day. When we were in government, we gave the police force almost everything that we could give them. As Attorney General, I said, we couldn't afford to give them the salary. We couldn't match the salaries in places like Bermuda and so on, but we gave them flexible time allowances. We gave them a variety of things. We equipped them. We spent $10 million on cars. We gave them new police stations. We did everything that we could to make the members of the Royal Barbados Police Force feel like they were important people in this land. And absolutely all of that has now been brought crashing down and has been destroyed. Immediately after the election, my friends, you saw tension between the commissioner and the deputy commissioner, a tension that could not dare rear its head when we were in government, because we would not have stood for it. But the moment the government changed, it was open season on the Commissioner of Police. It was open season on those people in the Royal Barbados Police Force who were reported or reputed to support the Barbados Labour Party. And what for? We have among the members of the Royal Barbados Police Force the finest policemen in the region. We have one of the finest commissioners of police anywhere in the world. But a Democratic Labour Party administration, for purely partisan political gain, has decided that they are going to destroy the force. Now, the background to this is very important, and I hope you appreciate why we're dealing with this subject tonight. The immediate happening has been that the Commissioner of Police recommended, as is his lawful duty to do, in the region of 60 individuals for promotion. There's a Police Service Commission that is appointed by the Governor General on the recommendation of the Prime Minister. In other words, it is a DLP commission. And the Commissioner of Police made his recommendations. He recommended 60. And they threw 20 of the Commissioner's recommendations and promoted 20 people who the Commissioner had not recommended, but most of whom had been recommended by a big dem in the force named Mr. Hines. Mr. Hines. I understand he's from somewhere north. Mr. Hines. And we're going to talk a little bit about Mr. Hines tonight. I can repeat it. The commissioner sent in 60 names and the commission threw 20 and promoted a different 20. Now what you need to understand is this. Not a member of the Police Service Commission walks the beat. Not a member of the Police Service Commission stands up in a uniform and strives to save and protect Barbadians. Only with the exception of one of them, they do not know what it is like to be a policeman. Now, the Commissioner in Section 8 of the Police Act has the responsibility to the Governor General for the management of the police force. Now, it does not take rocket science to understand that if you make a man responsible to manage and govern the force, that a decision on who gets promoted should principally be his decision. It is his force. He is in charge of it. And the Commissioner consulted and made his recommendations, but they rejected 20. Now, I remind you that this is not the first time that it has happened. Previously, the Commissioner sent in recommendations that were ignored. Previously. But I want you to understand the context. You see, this is the same police force. I believe you remember the Vybz Kartel issue. When Darwin Dottin, the Commissioner of Police, said, no, we are not having Vybz Kartel performing in Barbados. And then he got in his car and was headed to the airport on a trip as Commissioner of Police. And on his way to the airport, he could hear a Mr. Hines announcing Vybz Kartel show will go on. Remember that? And then not long after that, you heard that the commission, the Police Service Commission, brought charges against the Commissioner of Police, alleging that he was a liar and a vast raft of other things that we call absurd, things that we call ridiculous, things that we call specious. And so the Commissioner has been fighting this day in, day out. Now, tell me something. Is there anything about that that tells you that the force can remain stable in those circumstances? But again, we go back to the small things. Would you believe that on the night of the election in 2003, there were certain police officers who were jumping up and carrying on in George Street? And that is their right. That is their right. Nobody wants to stop them from doing that. Because I am sure that there would have been some who were probably in tears at Roebuck Street. No problem there. But there's a little known fact that 2 of those police officers left George Street and went and took up vehicles belonging to the country and said, one said, I'm driving the Prime Minister, and the next one said, I'm driving the Attorney General. It is a small thing. But you must understand that the decision as to who drives who is not made by the individual policeman. It is made by an individual who is in charge of the traffic division. But they got up and decided they were doing it. I'm driving so and so. There was no opportunity for the system to work. I didn't decide who would drive me as Attorney General. The police sent somebody to drive me. When Owen Arthur became Prime Minister, he didn't decide who he wanted. They sent somebody to drive him. But for the first time in our history, 2 policemen jump up, take out the government vehicle and say, I'm driving Frondell and I'm driving David. Small thing. But look where the force is today. There is a police officer who I am told does not speak to the Commissioner of Police. And he is not an individual of any senior rank. But because he has the ears of certain important cabinet ministers, he believes that he can disrespect his boss. Now, how does that make for the stability of the police force? And then you have the commission, the Police Service Commission. Therefore, every day the commissioner goes to work and the Police Service Commission is throwing a banana peel under his foot, throwing a banana peel under his foot, trying to trip him up, trying to make him resign. What does that say about the way in which our country is being run? And would you believe, my friends, that a man named Frondell Stewart is watching this every single day? Would you believe, my friends, that a man named Adriel Brathwaite is watching this every single day? There's that old saying that while Rome was burning, Nero was fiddling. And while the Royal Barbados Police Force is being brought to its knees, we have an administration that struts around, stands up, smiles, and does as they please without a care in the world for what happens to you and me tonight. When we speak about poor governance, that is exactly what we are speaking about. And so this has now caused 15 of those police officers to bring a court case. And you will have seen some of this stuff in the papers. Well, I live across a Carrot Road in St. George, and it followed the caravan there. it didn't drop off the truck. But you know when you go across a bad Carrot Road, there's bumps and things fall out. Things fall out. I saw this paper blowing about across the Carrot Road, and when I picked it up, I realized that it was a document filed in the same court case. And it was a document filed under the name of a man named Darwin Dutton, an individual who I respect a great deal. And when I was Attorney General, I had nothing but the highest praise for him, and I have nothing but the highest praise for him now. But you see, the commissioner can't speak. He can't speak. But it is important that the people of Barbados understand what is happening in this important organ of our country. One of the bizarre things that this document says, now I don't know anything about the facts. I can only tell you what the document says. But I can also tell you that I believe every word that the commissioner says too. And therefore, I want you to know that when I read it, I believe everything that I am reading. In this affidavit sworn by the Commissioner of Police, he points out that this present commission was appointed on the 15th of January 2009. And then he says, during the period 15th January 2009 to 14th July 2012, I have only been granted one meeting with the Commission, notwithstanding my several requests for meetings. That single meeting was held on the 18th of March 2009 and was characterized as an introductory meeting. The affidavit goes on. On the 21st of July 2009, I requested a meeting with the Commission to brief the Commission on certain security issues. I arrived to attend the meeting, but this meeting did not take place, and consequently, I was not given a hearing either then or subsequently. I have written on several occasions since July 2009 to request meetings with the Commission. None of my requests have been granted. This is the Commission that is responsible for the police force and has a statutory obligation to work with the Commissioner so that you and I can go about our business safely, but they refuse between 2009 and just now in 2012 to meet with the man. You understand that? This is the commission appointed by the Dems. But it gets worse. He says, as Commissioner of Police and head of the force, I have been denied an audience with the Commission. But get this, on the other hand, during the past 3 years, several junior officers have written and sought meetings with the Commission, and there have indeed been granted hearings by the Commission. So the Commissioner writes and asks for an audience, doesn't get one, but junior officers can write and ask and can get audiences. In addition, the Commission, whilst not granting me an audience to discuss issues concerning the administration of the Royal Barbados Police Force, it has met with the Deputy Commissioner of Police, Mr. Hines, even on occasions when I was not absent from my office and duties. You understand that? The Commissioner can't get an audience, but even while he's in Barbados, a man named Mr. Hines from up north can get an audience with the Commission. He goes on. I verily believe that such decisions by the Commission are designed and calculated to cause me frustration in the execution of the duties of the office of Commissioner and thereby induce me to resign the position of Commissioner of Police. Good Lord. We as a Barbados Labour Party administration came to government and found a fine gentleman, I believe his name was Orville Durant. And then after Orville Durant, there was a man named Grantley Watson, and then there was a man named Darwin Dotting. At no time in our tenure can anybody point to a single situation where our administration sat back and allowed the Royal Barbados Police Force to disintegrate before our very eyes. What, pray tell, is the Prime Minister or the Attorney General doing about this scandalous situation? Well, Frondell fumbles, but I can't think of a word for Adriel Brafitt just yet. But I'll go on. Because the document says, In 2010, I became aware that the Commission was actively taking steps to have me removed as Commissioner of Police on the basis of information and allegations given to it by the said Mr. Hines. Now this is really bizarre. Mr. Hines was Deputy Commissioner of Police from the time Mr. Doughton became Commissioner. Where were these allegations during that time? How is it possible that these allegations can only surface all of a sudden? How is that possible? But it goes on. I was absolutely astonished that the Commission could have lost confidence in me without even discussing its concerns and without affording me an opportunity to be heard in my defense. Now, I want to go a little further. The document also says, while I was on leave in July 2009, without any reference to or consultation with me, the Commission invited the Deputy Commissioner Hines, then Commissioner Acting, to submit recommendations for promotions. In my experience as a police officer of many years standing, this is the first time that the Commission has ever acted in such manner. And it goes on. On my return from leave, I asked for and was provided with a copy of the recommendations submitted by Mr. Hines. I later, in my capacity as Commissioner, submitted recommendations to the Commission. Several persons on the list submitted by Mr. Hines and not on the official list submitted by me were promoted. The Commission purported to act on the recommendations of Mr. Hines rather than on the statutory shortlist submitted by me. Now, for heaven's sake, where is this country going when we allow in the Royal Barbados Police Force a situation as evil and as detrimental as this to persist? And an Attorney General says and does absolutely nothing. And their Prime Minister says and does absolutely nothing. Do you understand what this is doing to the force? Do you understand that those 15 police officers who were among the most senior and the finest in the force have now had to seek recourse to the courts? Now understand what this means. Those individuals might as well go and look for new jobs next month. And the reason is simple. If they win their case, and the court asked the Commission to review the promotions, the Commission really is not likely to change their view on the people they're promoted. So it may well come back to be the same thing. And if they change their view, there's going to be resentment from the people who were to be promoted but who got booted out. That is more instability. And if these fine individuals who have filed their court action get promoted, you will find somebody saying, man, he only get promoted because he went court. How can such an individual lead his troops? Understand this. This is symptomatic of what the Democratic Labour Party is doing in Barbados. I can tell you for certain tonight, my friends, that the members of the prison service are watching this very carefully because they too are dreadfully afraid of this same kind of wicked political interference in their promotion process, which would see individuals who are entitled to be promoted being jilted because of political expediency. I can tell you, my friends, that the fire service is also watching the situation carefully because they too are concerned about wicked and nefarious political interference causing individuals who deserve to be promoted also to be shunted by the way. And if I ever had reason to doubt the bona fides of this administration as it comes to dealing with public servants, I want to remind you that it is this Democratic Labour Party that just 2 years ago fired 30-something people from the Urban Development Commission without a reason. and immediately hired back a different 30-something people, but 30-something people who they deemed, because of their political alliance, to be more deserving of work. This is the administration that is presiding over a fiasco at Alexandra School. And when we talk about bad governance, my friends, that is no governance at all. I told you earlier that Frandel and Adriel were fumbling while Rome was burning. But look at what has happened at Alexandra School. Ronald Jones was also fiddling while Alexandra School, that great historic institution from the north, is coming crushing down. Think about this. A minister refuses to act on a report that he commissioned. A minister refuses to act on a report that he commissioned. And when all hell broke loose, it was wrestled from his hands by the Prime Minister, who, in wonderful phase 1, met only with one party but not the other. That is no governance as well. Anybody knows that you must meet with both sides. But he promised us phase 2 and said, be patient. Be patient. Phase 2 is coming. And next thing we heard, phase 2 was so far gone that nobody can remember what it looked like. Although we don't know what phase we are in. We must be in the crop over phase, because the government is making sport at the people of Alexandra and in this country. Understand this. Frandel's only solution is to call a commission of inquiry. Now, that is so bizarre. Can you imagine what would have happened if in the aftermath of the prison fire, instead of fixing the problem, instead of dealing with the difficulty we had, Owen Arthur and Mayor Motley at the time would have said, well man, let me have a commission of inquiry to look into the thing and then tell us what to do. Governance is about governing. It is about making decisions in the interest of all of your people. Since when can an administration abdicate its responsibility to govern to a commission of inquiry? A commission of inquiry is welcome to look at the facts after the thing has been dealt with. But this commission of inquiry is expected to make recommendations on how to deal with the problem at Alexandra School. So it is no longer the responsibility of the Minister of Education to do it. It is no longer the responsibility of the Prime Minister to do it. It is now the responsibility of Mr. Justice Waterman. Mr. Justice Waterman was elected by the people of Barbados. I have great respect for the judge. But no government minister has any business asking a commission of inquiry to tell us what to do. They were elected to govern. And therefore, by passing the buck to the commission of inquiry, that, my friends, is another example of poor governance. And you know what is worse? School will start at Alexandra School in the first week of September. I guarantee you that the commission of inquiry, even if it is finished, it will be impossible for the commissioner, working alone, to come up, to review all the evidence, to compile a report, to present it to the Governor General, then to have it to go to Cabinet, all in time for the first week in September when school starts. And so far as I understand, there's a principal at Alexandra named Mr. Brooms, who, on the first day of the school term, is entitled to show up for work and start to lead that school again for better or worse. Can you imagine that? One body said that Mr. Brooms has mental problems. Another one's, I mean, you know what they said, I don't have to repeat it. You heard it all. It is broadcast for us every single day. That man's reputation is now in the dirt, and I'm not picking sides. But can you imagine that on the first day of the school term, that gentleman is going to go and stand up on that platform in that school hall and begin to try to run a school after this, and you have a minister who is completely emasculated. You know what that word means? It means he has been deballed. That's what it is. And you have a prime minister who therefore chooses to do nothing. So we are here tonight charging an administration with poor governance. And you have to understand that then in the international community, people see a government operating in this way, they disregard you. And you must also understand that when little boys and girls see an administration that does not care one jot nor tittle about the rules that we should live by, then how can we expect little Johnny or little Patsy to abide by those same rules? I was a part of an administration that was called to a high standard, and we followed the rules. We did not necessarily like them, but we followed them. It was the oath that we took. This administration has rejected all of that. And therefore the time has come, my friends, for us to reject all of them. Good night and God bless.